Hey y'all, on this episode of Old Grump's Garage, we're going to work on removing trailer hitch that's been welded on to hutch. So you'll see that they welded it to the bumper and they have welded it, see if I can get you in here, to the frame in several places. I can only mean one thing with a grinder. Well, the ugly bumper is off. Not all the trailer hitch is off yet. You see the two plates are still welded to the frame. They did a yeoman's job. I bet they put 4 welding rods on each side. Started disassembly on this bed side. As you can see, if you look down it, there's a couple good wrinkles in it. I think the easiest way to take care of this is just to pull the bed side off, work all that out, and then remount it. The other bed side's got to come off anyhow. In our initial review, we discussed replacing it. You can see here now that the bumper's off, that corner's really gotten hammered by something. And then if you look down the side of it, it looks worse than a stretch of Highway 3 going from South Georgia to Atlanta. Humps and bumps and curves and turns and hills, and yeah. Jury's out on this one. It's got to come off anyhow, so I may pull it off and dolly a while and see what we think before we make the call to replace it, but it's definitely got to come off anyhow. So pulled the toolbox off so that we could get to things where we could begin. We're going to have to unbolt the bed to slide it back a little bit to get enough room to get these front bolts off, because they're just a little too close to the cab. And when I did, look what we found. Yes, boys and girls, rot in the bed floor underneath the toolbox. So, yeah, like I said earlier, the more you pull off, the more you find. If you don't want to find bad things in your house, don't tear a hole in the wall. But yeah, we're progressing on. I'm waiting on a few things. We've got the bumper on order. It's supposed to be here next week, but the mounts for the bumper probably next month. So looks like we're going to do body work to keep ourselves busy. So getting the body bolts off and easing the bed back was more of a fight than expected. They were all rusted up, wouldn't come loose, started spinning in the bed. So I had to grind off the heads of 6 of the 8 body bolts, a couple of which, because of the rod up front, had pulled through on their own. So we're now going to need to be able to pick the bed up to get some of that cleaned up and out. And since I don't currently have an engine hoist with the fancy little thing for the bed lift, and I currently don't have a car lift, I've got web straps. And as you can see, they are floating the bed nicely. I stuck bolts through these stake pockets on the front and put washers on both ends. As you can see, if I turn the camera right like that, so that they don't come out. The back didn't have bolt holes all the way through, so they're catching on the lip. My intention is that I'll jack that up enough to roll it off the frame. I'll pull the truck forward and we'll put sawhorses under this, then we can clean up the stuff on the frame for the bolts and get the rest of the old bolts out. Then we can work on the body for the bed sides. Well, the bed is off now. Good news is the frame on the truck looks really good. I was worried about we'd find frame rot or something like that. Not seeing any. Back of the cab looks good. We've got some rot on the front of the bed wall, and of course what I showed you earlier in the floor of the bed. So little patch panel work to do on that kind of stuff. And one of the bed supports underneath looks like it needs some help. But yeah, 4 ratchet straps, and amazing what you can do when that's what you got to work with. I don't know, but I just kind of think we're going to need some bed bolts. What do y'all think? Okay, so this is the driver's side, bed side. We've done some hammering and dollying to get the majority of the dings and dents out, and discovered this. So we're gonna have to do a little welding down here. Then we'll be ready to do a little bit of glazing of some Bondo to smooth these dents out, and then we'll start sanding again. So once again, just like on the top of the driver's door, we've made a little bitty spot welds to get it seamed back together, because it can't take much heat, so you have to move from one side to the other and make little bitty welds and slowly get them together. We'll grind that down once it cools off, get it as smooth as possible, and a light coat of Bondo, smooth that down, and we'll be ready to prime. Well, spent some time filling dimples and holes and dents, sanding. Been over it with some 80 grit. I'll work a little bit more, probably down with some 200 and such. But we've saved this body side. Still out on the bed side for the passenger side. It's been farmed up. But the good news is our local brown truck delivery service rolled up with a can of aerosol a while ago, and it looks like it's the right color. I'm going to have to do a little work to blend it because what's on the cab is faded, but it looks like that is a match, so that's the right color. So I can go ahead and buy a larger quantity of that for painting the bed and the tailgate and all that kind of stuff, and then we'll later figure out what we're doing with the cab.